morning. I just finished what's called the vibe that I am a part of in the mornings, where we do some exercise, we do some meditation, we do all sorts of really interesting things. We also do gratitudes and various other really interesting exercises. It's a lot of fun. So I would, definitely recommend you find things to really get yourself up in the morning and have a reason to get up. So it's really interesting how when I go to this, I have to get up because everybody's expecting me. They're looking forward to seeing me there. So I have a reason for getting up. And on top of that, I also have a reason for getting up for the reading, obviously. So the usual cliche, you could say, let me just quickly do something. There we go. Reached that port out the book that I wanted to read, but I still only have in Chinese. Lockdown should be ending soon here in Sydney, and then maybe I'll be able to get a copy of that one. But we're still reading an absolutely amazing book at the moment, The Art of Thinking Clearly. So let's do some reading this morning, and we're not that far into it yet. Let's have a look. Coincidence. Neglect of probability, that's the one we read yesterday. And today, chapter 27. Hopefully this one doesn't make you hungry. Hopefully you've had a good breakfast if you're in a place where it's morning like here. Why the last cookie in the jar makes your mouth water. Probably not the best of breakfasts. The scarcity era. Okay, here we go. Coffee at a friend's house. We sat trying to make conversation while her 3 children grappled with one another on the floor. Suddenly I remembered, and actually I missed the time that I was grappling on the floor with the other kids. Suddenly I remembered that I had brought some glass marbles with me, a whole bag full. I spilled them out on the floor in the hope that the little angels would play with them in peace. Far from it. A heated argument ensued. I didn't understand what was happening until I looked more closely. Among the countless marbles, there was just one blue one, and the children scrambled for it. All the marbles were exactly the same size and shiny and bright, but the blue one had an advantage over the others. It was one of a kind. I had to laugh at how childish children are. In August 2005, when I heard that Google would launch its own email service, I was dead set on getting an account. In the end, I did. At the time, new accounts were very restricted and were given out only on invitation. This made me want one even more. But why? Certainly not because I needed another email account. Back then I already had 4. Nor because Gmail was better than the competition, but simply because not everyone had access to it. Looking back, I have to laugh at how childish adults are. Yeah, we're finally back to the humorous side of Rolf Dovelli. I've been missing that. Rara sunt cara, said the Romans. Rare is valuable. Hopefully I pronounced that okay with my Latin. I've never studied Latin. Okay. In fact, the scarcity era is as old as mankind. My friend with the 3 children is a part-time real estate agent. Whenever she has an interested buyer who cannot decide, she calls and says, "Doctor from London saw the plot of land yesterday. He liked it a lot. What about you? Are you still interested?" The doctor from London. Sometimes it's a professor or a banker, and is of course fictitious. The effect is very real though. It causes prospects to see the opportunity disappearing before their eyes. So they act and close the deal. Why? This is the potential shortage of supply yet again. Objectively, this situation is incomprehensible. Either the prospect wants the land for the set price or he does not, regardless of any doctors or lawyers from London. This is so important and so powerful. If you can learn about this principle and detach yourself and take a step back and see what is actually going on and see that somebody is using this technique, then it really assists you. It really helps you to be able to avoid overpaying for things, getting things that you don't really need or want. And yeah, this is one of the reasons why I like minimalism, because it prevents me from wanting things necessarily for any particular reason. And it's been really good for me to be able to do that. So something to have a think about. We'll keep reading. So to assess the quality of cookies, Professor Stephen Watchell split participants into 2 groups. The first group received an entire box of cookies, and the second group just 2. I'm assuming 2 cookies, not 2 boxes. In the end, the subjects with just 2 cookies rated the quality much higher than the first group did. The experiment was repeated several times and always showed the same result. Only while stocks lasts, the advert says. Today only, warn the posters. Gallery owners take advantage of the scarcity error by placing red dots under most of their paintings, transforming the remaining few works into rare items that must be snatched up quickly. We collect stamps, coins, vintage cars, even when they serve no practical purpose. The post office doesn't accept the old stamps, the banks don't take the old coins, and the vintage cars are no longer allowed on the roads. These are all side issues. The attraction is that they are in short supply. It's really fascinating how this all works, and it's important to be able to see it objectively, especially if you are I suppose if you're a collector, there are going to be people that like your collection, and it's a personal thing. But when it comes to things that are investment related, you don't want to go overboard. So if you're collecting Coca-Cola memorabilia, or if you're collecting Matchbox cars, or all of those different kinds of things, that's completely fine, because, well, it's what you like to do, and it brings you joy and happiness. But when it comes to investing, you have to be very careful with how much you're going to pay for something, what you see as the actual value, and you need to be able to take a step away from the emotional, away from all of those feelings that it's going to give you, all of that anxiety and fear over that scarcity. And you need to be able to see it for what it is. And so a good investor is going to be able to take that step back and avoid the scarcity, and not look at it from the emotional point of view, but look at it from a rational point of view. In one study, students were asked to arrange 10 posters in order of attractiveness, with the agreement that afterward they could keep one poster as a reward for their participation. 5 minutes later, they were told that the poster with the third highest rating was no longer available. Then they were asked to judge all 10 from scratch. The poster that was no longer available was suddenly classified as the most beautiful, regardless of whether it was or not. How interesting. So it went from 3 to 1 just because it now no longer exists. In psychology, this phenomenon is called reactance. When we are deprived of an option, we suddenly deem it more attractive. It is a kind of act of defiance. It's also known as the Romeo and Juliet effect, because the love between the tragic Shakespearean teenagers is forbidden, and therefore it knows no bounds. This yearning does not necessarily have to be a romantic one. In the US, student parties are often littered with desperately drunk teenagers, just because it's illegal to drink below the age of 21. That's actually very interesting, because a lot of people ask me, they say, you're from Holland, because I'm from the Netherlands, obviously, or not so obviously. And they ask me about marijuana and whether I smoke marijuana, and if I go to the Netherlands, if I smoke marijuana. And I am not a smoker, and I have never used marijuana. And people are surprised by that, but it's interesting. So over here in Australia and in most other parts of the world, marijuana use is illegal. Whereas in the Netherlands, it was legal. And now it's legal in lots of different places. But in those days, it was not legal in lots of other places, and only in the Netherlands. So the people in the Netherlands are allowed to do it. So most people don't. Whereas here, what it's not allowed, people are doing it and want to be able to do it. So it's interesting how you can actually see it very clearly in the Netherlands that there is a very low amount of marijuana use among youth because it's legal. So a lot of them have nothing to rebel against, so they don't use it. Very, very interesting. So in conclusion, the typical response to scarcity is a lapse in clear thinking. Assess products and services solely on the basis of their price and benefits. It should be of no importance if an item is disappearing fast, nor if any doctors from London take an interest. So I think that's a very important one. That's a really good one to have a think about. So I'm looking forward to reading some more tomorrow. 28. Wow. So that's already 4 weeks that we've been reading. That's amazing. So when you hear hoofbeats, don't expect a zebra. Base rate neglect is what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you enjoyed today's reading. I'm always looking forward to comments and ideas. So if you're watching on YouTube, if you're live on Bigo, doesn't matter where you are. Sometimes while I'm reading, I don't always see everything. I saw that there are a couple of people that said hi and asking me how I'm going. Obviously, when I am reading, I am feeling great. So it's amazing being online with you all. And let's have a look. Lannon's left a comment on the Zoom. He said that he fell into the trap of buying gold coin collection. He could have bought plain bullions and have more gold now. And he's probably paid a little bit more for that, I'm assuming, Lannon. So it's a very good lesson to learn. So Lannon's had to learn it the harder way. And hopefully for some of you, you are able to avoid that by today's reading and realizing that you don't have to go crazy over things just because there's a scarcity or somebody has created a scarcity. And that's the interesting thing. Very often scarcity is not real at all. So that doctor from London, that engineer from London, that professor from London who wants that house, very often, I would say very, very often, those are all made up. So when it comes to selling products, when somebody wants to sell you something, all of that is not going to be real. So you are reacting to something which is actually fake. And that is actually quite scary. So keep that in mind. Have an amazing day today. I'm looking forward to another reading tomorrow. And I will see you then.